Hello, ladies and gentlemen, movie lovers of all kind, and happy Canada Day! It's Canada Day, and it's also another Sunday fun day. Today's going to be a little less traditional. It's not going to be any sort of previous segment or new segment or anything. Basically, a Canada Day special, so I'm just going to rally off to you very quickly some of my favorite Canadian-made films. Now, it's not like a top 10 list, a top 5. I'm not ranking them or anything like that. I'm just giving you my favorites, movies that I can just kind of throw on whenever and enjoy them. Sometimes I'll even go to my way to watch them, and they are Canadian-made. Some movies that don't count is movies that were filmed in Canada but not set there, so anything like It, like the new Stephen King It movies from last year and the one coming out next year, the Godzilla 2014 reboot, and like the RoboCop 2011 reboot. There's a ton of movies that are actually filmed in Canada. Doesn't count though, they won't be included on this list. And just to show you too very quickly, this is where I'm from. Well, no, this is the world. Then you got Canada. Then you have my province. Then you have my half of the province. And then there's a little blip somewhere on there. That's me. And very quickly too, guys, I'm not going to be reviewing these movies. This is not the positives and negatives. There's not going to be any score or anything like that. I'm basically just going to list off these movies, give you a brief little summary about it, and then kind of why I like it. To start, guys, is the movie Goon. Goon was released in 2011. Stars Seann William Scott. You'll probably know him from American Pie, from the Dukes of Hazzard reboot. Guy's in quite a lot of stuff. He's just kind of like the goofy, funny guy all the time. In this, he plays Doug Glatt, who is kind of not on the brighter side of things, but, you know, he's always a really nice guy. And the thing he knows how to do is fight. He knows to take a hit, and he definitely knows how to throw a hit. He's kind of he's a bouncer right now, and then he kind of gets lucky when he meets a hockey coach, and he becomes an enforcer on a hockey team. The only thing is, he doesn't know anything about hockey. And then we have our movie. This movie was actually filmed in Halifax, which is only about 4 or 5 hours away from me. And this movie's good if you like hockey. Even then, sometimes it's because my girlfriend, she loves hockey. Didn't really like this movie a whole lot. But it's even better if you actually play hockey, because you'll get it a lot more. You'll understand kind of like the locker room talk. You'll get kind of like the on-ice lingo a little bit more, and kind of the lifestyle and stuff like that. I grew up playing hockey. I still play hockey. I absolutely love it. So this movie I absolutely love. And just so you know too, it's definitely on the more over-the-top side. The fight scenes in this, because like he's an enforcer, so you focus on that a lot. Insanely over the top. Every fight pretty much turns into a street fight. It's like insanely gory, insanely over the top. The hockey sequences in this are actually like pretty well done, like the skating and the shooting and all that stuff. The actual games are really well done, but like the accents are supremely over the top. Like I said, the fighting's over the top, the violence, the lifestyles, all that is absolutely crazy. But still, it makes for a really enjoyable movie. And the second one is Goon 2, Goon Last of the Enforcers if you prefer. It was released in 2017, follows Seann William Scott again. Very quickly, I just want to say I didn't like this movie as much as the first one, but this movie has more heart, which it kind of makes up for it being not as funny. It focuses more on Doug as like a family man. He can't play hockey anymore, he's forced out because of injuries. So, you know, he's trying to start a family, he has a desk job, stuff like that. So this movie has a lot more emphasis on, like, you know, heart to it with you know, being part of a team, being a father, being a husband. So that stuff in this movie is actually really well done. But, you know, of course, Doug is forced to come back. New top guy takes over, calling him out, yada yada. So he fights through the injuries, comes back to take on this guy. And I feel like this is a good, like, full story. Like, if you watch from the beginning of Goon 1 to the end of Goon 2, it is a full story, beginning to end. Doug Glatt's full legacy. So I feel like if you watch the first one, you should really watch the second one. I highly doubt we'll be getting a third one. So it is a good, solid beginning and end story. Next is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which was released in 2010 and is directed by Edgar Wright, one of my favorite directors working today. He's directed other fantastic movies such as the Cornetto trilogy, which consists of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, as well as last year's Baby Driver, which was my second favorite movie of last year. Absolutely loved it. This guy is a fantastic director. This movie is actually based off of the popular comic series, also I believe from Toronto, Canada. So yes, this was filmed in Toronto, Canada, and this movie feels like a comic book. Stuff from this movie is straight up from the comic book. The difference is, a lot of times people say like, oh, right are the comics from like Spider-Man, Batman, whoever. They take parts of the comic, put it in the movie, or like pay homage to it and stuff like that. This movie is not like that. This movie is full-blown from the comics, the whole visual aesthetic to it. This is one of the most amazing, visually striking movies I have ever laid my eyes on. It looks like a comic book, feels like a comic book, sounds like a comic book. There's just like when people get punched, it's got like the sound effects, got the colors coming out of their hands, you know, people get hit, it's like bam, boom, boom, like stuff like that. It has like, you know, giant monsters in it. It's got an absolutely killer soundtrack. It's like a rock soundtrack the whole way through. It's fantastic. It stars Michael Cera as Scott Pilgrim, and in this he has to take on this girl's 7 evil exes if he wants to be with her. It's just completely zany. Chris Evans is in this movie too. It's just like everyone, the acting's so over the top. It's so funny. Like I said, it's got the sound effects. It's got the whole visually going for it. It's one of the most beautifully visually aesthetic movies I've ever seen. It's insane, guys. It's so much fun to watch. Next is the one on this list that's closest to home for me, and that is My Bloody Valentine. My Bloody Valentine, the original, was released in 1981. It was actually filmed in Sydney Mines, which is only like 10 or 15 minutes away from my house. So to me, this movie's awesome to watch, to see like the main street from Sydney Mines, stuff that I can just go down and see now. That's spectacular to me. I think they renamed it in the movie to like Valentine's Falls or Blossom I don't remember. They named it to something crazy, but just to emphasize that it's a Valentine's Day movie. Takes place on Valentine's, of course, My Bloody Valentine. Essentially, the story is a couple of miners, like 20 years ago on Valentine's night, went back into the mine because it was like the mining capital of everything ever, Sydney Mines. And they get trapped down there, left down there for 6 weeks. Dude has to become a cannibal in order to survive. Swears, you know, because everyone was out partying, he swears anyone else parties on Valentine's Day again, you're gonna kill him. 20 years down the road, they decide to party again, you're gonna kill him. The thing about this movie is, when it originally released, there was about 9 minutes of footage cut because it was too graphic for theaters back then. And in 2009, they released an uncut Blu-ray version of this movie, restored 3 minutes of it. You can definitely tell which 3 minutes it is because it switches quality majorly. It gets super grainy, super fuzzy, but in doing so, they did a great job because it is gruesome. Some of the kills in this movie that came back are fantastic. They are so bloody, so disgusting, so awesome to watch. Of course, 1981, there was no CGI. It's all just prosthetics. It's all practical effects. There's one in this where Buddy gets a pickaxe up through his throat, comes out his eyeball, and blood's just squirting everywhere. His eye, like, pops out. It's crazy, but it's so much fun to watch, guys. And the acting in this actually isn't that horrible either, believe it or not. I think it's not great or anything like that. It's typical slasher movie stuff, but it's mildly enjoyable. Next is, and I'm going to make a bold claim on this one, Black Christmas, released in 1974. Get it? 444. The reason I emphasize the 4 is because people make the claim that the original Halloween from 1978 is the godfather of the modern slasher, but that is not true. This is the godfather of the modern slasher, or if you want, you can call it the great godfather, or the great grand godfather, or the god-grand-great father. Like I said, 1974, guys, there's a lot of things that Halloween, I won't say stole from this because I respect the hell out of Halloween. I absolutely love that original film. It is one of the, it's a landmark in filmmaking, honestly. Horror and movies in general, I do not believe would be what they are today without Halloween. But yeah, this movie did it first, like the first person shots with like when you're the killer, you're the camera walking around. That came from this movie. So many other things, like different like musical tones and different other shots, all came from this movie first. Halloween just took it, copied it, and made it Hollywood. This movie did it first. This movie was from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Once again, it's awesome. It's really fun to watch, guys. The main grab of it actually very quickly, I guess I should say, it's just basically a typical slasher film. Sorority sisters in their home on Christmas break, terrorized by a stalker, someone they call the Moaner, who always calls them. But that's where the best part of the movie comes in, actually. The kills in this movie aren't really gruesome at all. In fact, most of them are off screen, which is kind of disappointing. But what makes this movie so disturbing is the phone calls that they receive from the Moaner. It's a mixture of like screaming and crying and name calling and death threats, and they're so eerie. I seriously, just search them up on YouTube, Black Christmas 1974 phone calls. They are so unnerving. They're so disturbing. Just talking about it now gives me chills. Very well done. Super, super effective. Even today, 1974, this movie came out, still gives me the chills today. And second last on this list, guys, very quickly, is Bun Cop, Bad Cop. Bun is French for good, so it is technically Good Cop, Bad Cop. Released in 2006. A body is found murdered on the border of Quebec and Ontario. And of course, they put the two top detectives, because they can't decide who gets to cover the case, so one from Quebec, one from Ontario, clash together to get this case solved. This movie is like action comedy. It's basically just a run-of-the-mill buddy comedy, but it came out of Canada. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The funniest part about this, I think, is the fact that I watched this in school in grade 10, so I was like 15, and this movie is not a family-friendly movie. It's got guns, lots of violence, it's got F-bombs left, right, and center, it's got nudity, it's got everything that an R-rated movie would and should have. And I saw it in school. Yes, Canadian schools are awesome. But there's a lot of funny scenes in this. I remember one that sticks out to me in particular. They chase a guy into a house. There ends up being like a weed op in the basement. The house burns down. These guys come out. They're high as a kite. It's so funny seeing them try to like explain things to other cops, the firefighters. That scene to me, like I said, I haven't seen this in a few years, so I definitely, that scene stuck out and I still remember it, so it's a memorable scene. It's pretty funny, guys. Overall, the movie's pretty enjoyable. And it actually was good enough to get a sequel last year, which I haven't watched yet, but I plan to at some point. And lastly, guys, to wrap this up is Passchendaele. Passchendaele was released in 2008 and chronicles the events of the Battle of Passchendaele, which was in World War I, which is probably Canada's most like prolific and prominent battle. I mean, there's debate to that, but this one got a movie, so I would say it's Passchendaele. I'll say this, the war scenes in this are actually pretty good. The battle sequences are good. I mean, it's nothing major like Saving Ryan's Privates or anything like that, like Steven Spielberg style, nothing like that. They're pretty enjoyable though. They emulate war pretty good, especially World War I. I hate war movies and action movies that are like PG-13. They don't drop F-bombs and stuff, because I feel like in those situations, your friends are dying, you're being shot at, you're killing people, you're not going to watch your language. So that, to me, they did a really good job on this and that, and as well as they did really good on like the trench warfare. It's muddy, it's gross, it's disgusting. You're going to use whatever you can as a weapon, so there's people being killed with like rocks, helmets, the butts of your guns, stuff like that. All that stuff was really good, and the shootouts were all really good, but they clearly didn't learn from Pearl Harbor. This movie came out like 7 years after Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor had a love story, and we all know how that went. And if you don't know how that went, horribly is the answer. Horribly. Same thing with this movie. Love story sucks. Doesn't ruin the movie, because like I said, the movie isn't like amazing right out of the gate, but the love story completely unnecessary. I know they want to try to make you care about the characters more, but you just don't. You're there for the war stuff. The war stuff's pretty good. You can watch it for that. So there you go, guys. Like I said, a little less traditional today, but it's Canada Day, so celebrate. It was a list, I believe, with a little bit of variety, right? You had a couple of comedies, you had an action comedy, you had a comic book movie, a couple of horrors, and a war movie. It gave you a little bit of everything. So like I said, if you want to taste of Canada, you're not from here, check them out. Maybe you are from here, you never watched them before. They're pretty decent. Again, guys, happy Canada Day. Have fun, celebrate, crack a cold beer, play some washer toss, bowler ball, ladder ball, whatever you want to call it. Go play a bit of street hockey, something Canadian, and have fun. And guys, if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what's your favorite Canadian-made film. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap.